Well, welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, on our show, we discuss so many of the issues facing boomers, of course, their parents, and what we know, of course, is an aging population, which I fit right into that category. I want to remind everybody that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, a professional senior placement and elder care consulting organization that is a national network of advisors to help in determining the right path for senior living and receiving proper care. So whether it's in-home care, assisted living, residential or memory care, or you just need an advocate to get advice, you can certainly talk to a senior care advisor in your area by calling Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231. Or you could go directly to the website at www.seniorcareauthority.com. I always want to take a moment and just, thank everybody for all their support. Where our listeners are growing each and every day, and it's because of you, because you're letting friends and family know about it. So I want to thank you for that. Of course, you can listen to the show a lot of different ways. Certainly, you could go on to iTunes, iHeartRadio to do it. You could go directly to the Aging Boomers website. And of course, I would say what many of you do is you just download the free app, the Aging Boomers app, on your iPhone or Android phone, and keep up to date on all of our interviews with some fantastic people. So I want to thank you, and also thanks for the support of my book that came out this year called The Aging Boomers as well, which you can get on Amazon.com. Speaking of wonderful people in the industry, I'd like to introduce Ed Gray. Early in his career, Ed worked with physical therapy physical therapy clinics, which was the impetus for Ed's pursuit of a career in physical and occupational therapy. He graduated summa cum laude with an associate degree in physical therapy from Lynn University, was followed by a Bachelor of Science degree in occupational therapy from Barry University. After 12 years of successfully treating neurological and other disorders as a physical therapist and an occupational therapist, Ed and his wife, Jodi, opened a clinic in Boynton Beach, Florida, then a second clinic in Boca Raton, Florida, and branded both clinics as Florida Movement Therapy Centers for Excellence. Ed has become a nationally recognized lecturer and noted expert in the field of movement disorders. So, Ed, thank you so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers. I really appreciate it.
Well, great, and I got to thank you all for having me on. It's an honor and an absolute pleasure to get the word out and promote, I think, our seniors and the safety of what we're doing, and especially in the field of movement disorders.
Yeah, I guess that's what leads to my first question. So is that really, that's kind of the area of specialization that you do within your particular clinic?
Yes, it is. I mean, and just to note, we have added a third facility just recently as well, all in Palm Beach County.
Oh, great.
But, movement disorders encompasses a few different things. And again, balance is probably one of the biggest ones. Second one is probably Parkinson's. And then when you start to get into, of course, MS and stroke. So any of the neurological-based disorders actually start to fall under movement disorders. I always believe that balance is a neurological problem, and when we start talking about this, you'll see where I'm going with this, and understanding that this is, I think today is why it's so integral, and everybody's becoming specialist, and one of the beautiful things is to find a specialist that's going to help you treat these disorders.
So I know that. As you know, in my work, we do a lot of work with assisted living locations, memory care locations, right, etc. And we all see all these commercials on TV on wear this pendant or whatever, and you have a fall, you could press, and people will come to help.
Right.
I know that that's important, but to me, you want to try to prevent that fall. Right. That's it's nice to get help after the fall, but certainly the emphasis, I think there needs to be more emphasis on fall prevention and what you do. You want to talk about kind of what you see as some of the main causes for these falls, and then certainly we'll talk about some of the things that people could do to help prevent these from happening.
Sure. Well, what's interesting, the Congress now has a mandate out through Medicare, of course, and through the insurance, is fall prevention is one of the biggest things. Mm-hmm. Fall prevention costs us in the neighborhood of $1.2 billion a year in medical care. The average fall in itself costs you over $34,000 to $50,000 by the time somebody gets a ride to the hospital, gets checked out, and then if something does happen to them, it's on to rehab, home care, and then outpatient therapy. So, and it's interesting because I talk about this all the time. Falls can be prevented. It's training for old age that becomes the impetus on how to prevent a fall. Balance and training for this becomes. You can almost prevent it if somebody started training for, it's training for old age. And balance and falls come in basically 5 areas. And you can start to narrow it down, and then you train for it. People train for golf. People, they train for bridge. They train for tennis. But they don't get training for old age. And we talk about it all the time, exercise, exercise, exercise. But on the flip side of that coin, it does need to be specialized exercise in a way. If that makes sense.
Oh, no, it makes perfect sense.
So one of the things, and when you start to look, and one of the first things I ask everybody, have you had a fall? And the hands go up, and a lot of times you find, I tripped over the car stop, or I tripped in the house, or I fell. But falls only come from basically 5 areas. So when you start to narrow down what goes on, then you can start to figure out where you have to add and focus your training in, so to say. So good example of that, and we can start talking about how to narrow that down. Well, you start looking at the eyes. Are the eyes an issue? Is it macular degeneration? Is it loss of night vision? Is it glaucoma? Whatever the process might be. So we start to narrow that down, and then we go to say, okay, well, maybe it's not the eyes, maybe it's the inner ear. But then that's the number 2 area. Well, the inner 2 could be vertigo. It could be, the loss of balance due to the inner ear. So, again, those have all very specific ways to treat them. But then we get into the brain, which is the number 3, and that's probably one of the bigger issues. The brain can encompass so many different areas. And again, whether it's Parkinson's or a stroke, or any other type of, it could be a memory issue as well. It could be dementia. Mm-hmm. These are all causes for a fall. So again, very specific ways to start treating them, okay? And then we go down to maybe some stenosis. Maybe you start to get muscle weakness in the legs that are associated with stenosis of the back. And lastly, we start to look at, is there neuropathy within the feet, okay, which again allows the brain to pick up where we are in space. And everything is really kind of centered around where we are in space, and do we have the strength and the endurance and the focus and training of how to prevent that fall. Again, it costs us a lot of money. It's a lot of trauma. It takes many, many months to come back from it. And again, one of the bigger issues of that becomes loss of confidence too. So somebody, once they've fallen, they lose confidence, then they become fearful of falling again. And then you couple that with an injury, it becomes even worse. So those are reasons why we fall. Now the other the other flip side of that coin is, what do we do to prevent it?
Right. So
okay.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about. And I guess from your experience, where are these falls mainly occurring in a particular part of the home?
Well, again, statistically, we know, believe it or not, the kitchen, the bathroom are two of your biggest areas. Okay, those are the biggest ones. And again, this is easy. So organizations, home care organizations, whether it's Medicare Part A or it's a one that provides aids or assistance to come into the home, but it's always good to have somebody come through and do a home evaluation. So there's one of your first ones, getting rid of throw rugs. Unfortunately, everybody loves pets, but pets, unfortunately, are a big cause of falls because your loved pet, the dog or the cat, gets down between your feet or your legs, and they trip. Back to the bathroom becomes another one. The shower, installing grab bars helps prevent that fall, but having the right amount of grab bars around and lighting and making sure that the throw rugs are going to trip you up, things like that, also help prevent the fall.
Yeah. So you mentioned an interesting term. I think it's training for, getting older, training for aging.
Yeah. I call it training for old age. Is
great.
I love that term. I tell everybody, train for old age.
Great. That's a good term. So, let's say somebody who's in their 50s and 60s, for whatever reason, they just got lazy, right? They got lazy. They didn't really work out much, train, as you call it. Is it ever too late? I mean, somebody in their 70s and 80s to then start?
Listen, it's something, and I think all of us know this, and that the information out there is, and especially with the advent of the internet and everybody's on it, they just exercise. But the thing is, most people don't want to. It's almost like saying a dirty word. Exercise. It's a bad word, but it can be fun. And there's ways to do it, and especially in the communities today, and a lot of the senior communities, they have sitter-size classes, they have pool classes, they have yoga, seated yoga, so pickleball, whatever it is. They have so many little things going on now, so it's never too late, whether or not you're 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old. It doesn't matter, and it also doesn't even matter what condition you're in, whether you haven't exercised at all. There's ways to do things, and there's fun ways, because if it's fun, people will want to do it more.
Right. So let's talk about some of those. Let's talk about some of the ways you recommend people, move forward with to help prevent falls. What are some of the key things?
Well, what's interesting, again, Medicare and the insurance companies do not want you to fall. And if you've got a little bit of a problem, I think one of the very first areas to do is to go see a professional, and especially a professional that has expertise in this, okay? And again, we've become so specialized today that the important thing is to find the right person to do it, okay? So I always say that, if you've got a broken arm, you're not going to go to a podiatrist. So, you got to find the right person, the right physician, the right therapist, could be even the right trainer that's going to help you do this. And you need an evaluation and have somebody look at those areas that we talked about previously and to see if there's deficits. And then after that, then you set up nice little programs for them to get started. And after that, you start to encourage them to maybe do things on their own or within their community. What's interesting is that, again, we named our centers Florida Movement Therapy Centers for a reason. Movement is the key, especially as we get older. People don't move as much. They don't want to move around as much. So, again, simple training could be just going for a walk, a vigorous walk, but a walk is a great way to even get started. Very simple.
If there was any part of someone's body that they should strengthen, what would that be?
Well,
to help prevent falls.
That's a wide open question. Frank. What's interesting, because it's like, okay, I always think that the core is probably one of the most important areas. Well, why? It creates postural stability. Even walking comes from the core. Getting up out of a chair comes from the core. Getting in and out of the shower, off the toilet. All of these things kind of come from the core. So I think if you have to start somewhere, it's very simple to just start in that area and then work on the legs and work on the gluteals and things like that become extremely important. And it's hard. I think the hardest part is, and again, I think that the second hardest thing is the head, psychological part of this, motivation, how to get somebody to want to do these types of things, and that becomes the hard part,
Right. So you mentioned something earlier that I like to just. I wasn't going to ask you, and then I was in my head. I'm going, I want to know. You talked about Medicare, and how so much money is being spent on fall prevention because of the cost after a fall, which makes perfect sense. But if somebody wanted to be proactive, all right, and go, I'm getting older, I'm not moving as well. I haven't had a fall yet, but I've lost my balance, and my kids are concerned, so I'm going to go talk to my doctor about it. I mean, would Medicare cover something like that, or they're only going to cover if something happened?
No, that's the beauty of what's going on right now, and the exciting thing, they want you. They want fall prevention. They've got programs set up for this. They want this, to be evaluated. They want this looked at because they do want you to prevent that fall before it ever happens. Believe me, it's much easier for Medicare to spend a couple of $1,000s to have you go in and do some physical therapy for a little while than to have to spend $35,000 to $50,000.
Well, I agree, but not sometimes with insurance, which Medicare is. Sometimes it doesn't always make common sense. That is common sense. So what you're suggesting is that if someone wants to be proactive, they should, and they're a senior and they're on Medicare, they should bring it up.
Well, not only that, but Medicare is encouraging that, and it is the dictate now from Congress because it's costing us so much money. So they do have programs. You can go on, the National Institute of Neurological Health or the National Institute of Health has these programs, the dictates that Congress has set up now. That stuff's out there, but they want to be proactive in preventing that. I even think some of the other insurance companies, whether it's Humana or Kaiser or whoever else, they all have those silver sneaker programs and those sitter-size programs. They want people moving. They want people exercising. They want people training for old age. And they want to prevent that fall,
Okay. All right, that's great to know.
It's
great to know. So when someone comes in to visit with you, all right, they've gone to their doctor, the Medicare has approved for them to go in to see you to get some strengthening or fall prevention work. What are the types of things you would work with, assuming this person didn't have any other, I guess they're always going to have some issues, but generally speaking, what type of exercise program would you put them through?
Well, listen, I've got, that's a great question, Frank, and I'm going to tell you,
it's a tough one, I know. It's a tough one to answer,
Yeah, no. Actually, to me, it's a great, easy question because first off, you're going to get evaluated, and the 5 things that I talked about previously, you have to kind of start narrowing down and limiting because you're going to gear that program that you're going to get set up for balance and fall prevention towards maybe that area. So, let's just say whether it's neuropathy or leg weakness or stenosis, you're going to gear that program after the evaluation. So instead of trying to just, and again, for everybody that's listening and seniors, you don't want to just throw a bunch of crap against the wall and see what's going to stick. I think if you do it very specifically and get evaluated, that's going to help. Now, here comes the clevet on this, is I've got about 4 rules that we kind of gear towards this, and I'll start progressing this. Number one is you want to have some intensity in that exercise. You want to get them out of that comfort zone a little bit, and then you want to tie some emotion into this. And you want to tie down some cognitive challenges and then focus on what you're doing. Well, why? When somebody gets up out of a chair, out of the living room, and maybe they got to dance around the coffee table, and they're trying to get to the bathroom during the commercial break so they can get back, and they're not focusing on what they're doing, boom, the next thing you know, they go down. So one of the things, and I'm going to answer the question about what specific types of exercise, you have to gear them towards whatever the deficit could or possibly not be. But here's the beauty, and I say this all the time. Nobody ever falls standing on one foot. Dynamic exercise, dynamic balance exercises, I think, are the real key. People usually are falling when they're doing something, whether it's moving from room to room or dancing around a coffee table or stepping over a car stopper or negotiating an obstacle. They're always moving when they fall. They're not standing on one foot. They're not standing with one foot in front of the other. So exercise can be so beautiful, geared towards whatever it could be, but it should be moving. How about dancing? What a great way to exercise, right? We've all watched Dancing with the Stars. 1 or 2 minutes of them out there on the dance floor. Those guys are huffing and puffing, aren't they?
All right.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's good balance activity.
You
know, it's got some intensity to it. So, it kind of fits right into it, but that's how you have to do it. You have to kind of pick it out, look for that deficit, and then gear that program individually for that person, Do
you believe in the old term, no pain, no gain? Or
Well, I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Why? First off, if somebody, especially our seniors, if you make them so sore, the muscles, and that's easy to do.
Yeah, they're not going to come back.
They're not going. You're never going to see them again. Then they're going to say, "See, I told you I hate exercise. Look what it did to me."
Right.
But you get a lady, and let's just say, or a gentleman too. They're sitting there playing bridge 4 or 5 times a week. Well, let's get them up off that. 4 to 5 hours sitting there playing cards, great for the brain, okay? But on the other hand, you need to stimulate other ways and stimulating the body, moving around, stretching, whether it's senior yoga, Tai Chi. Oh my goodness, Tai Chi is one of the best exercises to do out there, and it's a movement-based exercise, right?
Right. Exactly. So how do you incentivize people to get off their you-know-what and go out and do some of that? I mean, that's the biggest challenge, I would think.
And it is. And motivation is probably one of your hardest. As people age, and here's what's interesting, whether or not they have a disease process or not, they start to get a little apathetic. They start to get a little depressed. And those things start to set in. And trying to encourage them just to start, even simply walking, to get that motivation back up in there, and offset that through endorphins. A little bit of endorphins goes a long way. Well, what does it take? Just start moving. And you can tell them, and you can reason logically, but it never ever really works. But if you make it fun, and I'm going to give you a quick example here. Exploring new activities become fun. We use a lot of boxing in our programs.
Mm-hmm.
But you know who enjoys it the most? The women who have never hit anything. The women who have never put a glove on. And the next thing you know, you put a glove on them and haven't hit a heady bag or a punch mitt. They get excited.
They probably never felt better in their life after doing that.
They haven't. And you start them, it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I could do that. So giving them success is always one of the first things to do. You got to make something successful. Second part of that is you got to make it fun. So if it's something that's fun and they're going to get successful out of it, guess what? They're going to keep doing it.
Right. So, Ed, this has been great information. We have a couple minutes left, all right? So okay. I would love for you to chat a little bit on... people are listening to this saying, hey, this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about, but unfortunately I'm in St. Louis or I'm in Michigan or wherever. And I'd love to find somebody like him. What suggestions do you have to people to help them find the proper specialist? Obviously, I'm sure their coverage of insurance could have something to do with that, but any suggestions you have for people? And then we'll couple that with letting people know how they could get a hold of you if they would like to as well. So I'll let you take it away.
Sure. One of the hardest things is, and people don't really realize this, is that you can interview several doctors. You can interview several therapists. I think the biggest thing to start, find somebody that you're comfortable with and somebody that's going to have the right programs. Again, if I have a broken arm, you got to find the right physician that's going to do it. We've gotten also specialized. So one of the things that I think that the first thing you need to do is find the right therapist, the right physician. You have to build it. As a senior today, I think building a team around yourself that's going to fit your needs is the utmost importance, and I think that's so vital. So it is going to require a little bit of research, a little bit of legwork, and it's out there, it's on the internet, in your area, wherever you're at. So if you're in St. Louis, if you're in Seattle, Washington, or if you're in California, it doesn't matter. Find somebody that's going to fit you and fit your needs. Don't just take the therapist that's treating, say, a bunch of hands. If it's a hand therapy, whoever it is, find that specialist that's going to fit your needs and that you're going to feel comfortable with too. And that's the important part. Okay. Is
there any, background that they should have, or does everybody in your field have a similar type of license and training?
Well, it's no different. I think physicians today, and I'll give you an example. You can go to an orthopedic surgeon, but we have orthopedic surgeons that only treat hands. We have orthopedic surgeons that only do a knee. We have that only do a shoulder. And therapists are kind of the same way. And you want to find somebody that does have a specialty and special training, because we all have special training after we graduate, to start focusing in these areas. So I think finding somebody that has some extra special training or have done extra training in balance and fall prevention would probably be more advantageous than, say, the therapist that's only treating a broken wrist or a broken hand. You know what I'm saying?
Got it. Okay, great. So, Ed, share with us how people could learn more about your clinics, and feel free to share any information you'd like.
Well, you can always go to, first off, I'll say this like everybody else, right? You can always go to our website and find us at flmtc.com, Florida Movement Therapy Centers. We have 3 facilities, and all we specialize in is movement disorders, which includes the balance and things like that. Anybody, if you're feel free to pick the phone up and give us a call. You can send us emails. We'll be happy to answer them. We'll be happy to do whatever we can to help somebody. We've had people come as far away as Alaska and England and Costa Rica to come see us. So if they feel that they want to jump on an airplane and come see us, I welcome it, of course.
Not a bad place to visit anyway.
No, it is not. It's absolutely a beautiful place to visit. The gentleman that came to us from Alaska for 7 weeks loved every minute of it. I talk to him all the time. But on the other hand, we could help. I don't mind helping people. I love doing that. And if you've got some suggestions of somebody in your area and you want me to look them up, we can do that as well. But, I don't hesitate to get on the phone, and I want to talk to you and help you out. So, our phone numbers are on there. We have emails, and, again, our website's out there as well so that you come. And if you live in this area, just come visit us. We're available in Boca, Boynton, and Palm Beach Gardens.
Perfect. Ed Gray with Florida Movement Therapy Centers for excellence. You could go to www.flmtc.com. Hopefully I got that right, Ed.
And, yes, sir, you did.
Great. So I want to thank everybody for joining us on the Aging Boomers. And Ed, thank you so much for joining us. And love to have you back on a future show. It would be great.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So just, again, thank you, everybody. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all soon.